Shelby, after yesterday's appearance at the inauguration of Mayor Helena Moreno, former Vice President Kamala Harris is set to appear in New Orleans again tonight. Harris is bringing her book tour to the Saenger Theatre. The event, called A Conversation with Kamala Harris, will discuss her book, 107 Days. The book outlines her presidential campaign in 2024, and it's a New York Times bestseller. According to the Saenger Theatre's website, Harris will talk about her life story, her historic presidential campaign, and other life experiences on her path to finding her purpose. Harris is scheduled to host a meet and greet ahead of the conversation today at 5:30, followed by the event starting at 7. And ticket prices start around $60, and you can find out more information at the Saenger Theatre's website. Shelby, back to you.